welcome back to another episode. In the last episode, we did a heck of a lot of traveling, okay? We stacked up the food necessary for our trip, and we headed north. When we headed north, we ended up discovering a lot of mountains, right? But most of all, we ran into a lot of giants, right? A lot of ogres, and the first ones were defending part of a boat, but the second cluster that we met, we ran into some storm giants. Now, the storm giants, luckily, were lawful, and thus weren't really too much of an issue for the party. The party were able to get out of there after getting attacked with a nice rainstorm. But nevertheless, the party were able to skirt back around again and make it down south, looping back around the coast, back close to Valley Dar. Now, we uncovered a lot of forest, a lot of plains, but most importantly, on the way back up, the party encountered a bit more of the ogre encampment, but this group was protecting a strange club, some sort of magic club, though they don't know that yet, that was half embanked in a bunch of sand. The party were able to, on horseback, lure the ogres towards them, dart around them, scoop up the club on the way, and luckily, the ogres weren't able to trail them. So the party are now back in Valley Dar with this very strange club, and I guess it's time we start figuring out what's going on with this club, as it's probably going to start to reveal those properties to us. So let's go back to the basement, shall we?
Hello, and welcome back to the basement. It is I, and I come with some little updates, some new stuff. I feel like every single time I end up down here in the basement, I have some new little, upgrade to the basement. So first and foremost, I don't want to break any illusions you might all have of me being super hardcore down here, but I do love to light a candle before I begin. And right now I'm using these Dragon's Den. I hope that's not mirrored when I have this off there. This is Dragon's Den candles. This is Cloudtop Castle that I'm burning right now. It's very nice. Honestly, they're a really cool brand. You should check them out wherever they're at. They're a local place for me. So anyways, I also got a fancy schmancy dice tower, which I know some people have opinions about dice towers, but I thought about it. I was like, as much as I love rolling and then having to be like, oh, I rolled off camera, I thought to myself, I was like, why don't I get one of these little guys and I can just, maybe I'm gonna absolutely hate that. And I'll learn that I actually despise that noise. But we're gonna figure that out together. And you know what? The last little upgrade I wanted to mention is this basement space is super weird, but I put up a Jaws poster, which is kind of sick, right? I know the little dungeon aesthetic down here is getting improved on the daily. Still, my lava lamps confound me. Oh, I also got a new microphone, which I'm hoping pays off, because the other one, I don't know. I mean, it might sound exactly the same. Don't read into it too much. Don't listen too intently. Anywho, those updates aside, in the last episode of our show here, our little Dungeness jaunt, our party returned with a super fancy weapon. And that super fancy weapon, well, we didn't really know what it did, but we knew it was intelligent, likely, and we knew that there was some stuff going on with it for bonuses. So I guess in that case, why don't we come back down here to the table? We'll discuss what we figured out. And by we, I mean me. Just come on. So, before we dive headfirst into this whole recording process of, what this fancy schmancy club does, I do want to give a thanks to a group of people. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to Todd, who's obviously always been really awesome in the comments. And Todd, you're one of the real ones. I'm very grateful to have you. I wanted to say thank you to Tom H, and I wanted to say thank you to J Ben H. Our friends over at the OSR Facebook page and at the Old School Essentials Facebook page have been really awesome. Todd, obviously, down in the comments in these YouTube videos. Again, I'm so grateful to have all of you guys who interact with my posts and comment on my videos. It really means a lot, but it's awesome for things like this when we can actually use your suggestions to make impactful things happen in the game. So let's talk about this weapon, shall we? Wow. Okay, I wrote out all this stuff. Again, this is kind of a compilation of the different ideas that I was given, and frankly, I like this item. I was afraid it might be a little bit overpowered, but then I remember this is old school, and most of our characters who could possibly be wielding this will likely die in one hit. So I don't feel as bad having this item be the way that it is. So I named this the Wrath of Karok. I figured this item's going to be evil. I said it was neutral evil, at least for now. It's a +2 weapon, which obviously adds +2 to damage and to attack. It has basically right off the bat, it gives the user a -2 to their wisdom and a -2 to their intelligence, but it grants them a +2 to strength. The wielder also craves meat and alcohol while they're holding this and while they have it in their possession. The weapon will cast fear or confusion on a critical hit, which I thought was a lot of fun. And on a fumble, the user will swing at an ally instead, which I figured if it's going to be a powerful weapon like this, it should have a big drawback. And I think that that is a very big drawback. Again, remember that part where I said anybody could just die with, one hit? I also suggested that the intelligence is 7, so it communicates through empathy. And I said that it has an ego of 4, and 4 + 7 is a will of 11. The will might come up later, but for right now, don't really worry about that. Gotcha. Whoosh. All deleted. Okay, yeah, deleted, because you delete the writing on the board. Don't worry about me. So, I think that the most reasonable character to wield this weapon would be Todrick. I think as far as the roleplay goes for, gaining the Wrath of Karok, I think it's fair that when Tamrind, when Tamrind is wielding the club and he feels that it's ominous and dark and there's something strange about it that makes him feel unwell, being a lawful good character wielding a neutral evil weapon, yeah, you can see why as soon as the intelligent weapon sort of made itself known, you could see why he would be rejected, I guess is a good way to put it. So I think that the only person who would be comfortable using it would likely be Todrick. Again, character named after Todd, who helped come up with some of the ideas. And one of the ideas that Todd had floated our way is one that I think sort of makes sense in this, where Todd had suggested in the last video that perhaps there's an ogre lair nearby, and the club artifact belonged to their former leader. Something like the ogres don't know what happened to their leader, but they have his club and don't know what to make of it. Did the club send the ogre war chief out on a mission? Did it send him into his peril, or something else? Now this is interesting. It makes me think that maybe there is some sort of madness that couldn't be satiated in the ogre himself, and somehow he had a break from the club. And I almost wonder if the club itself rejected him because he wasn't strong enough and aggressive enough and hungry enough for this kind of stuff. So it makes sense to me that Todrick picking it up and being an avaricious guy himself would probably sense in this item this drive to like consume and to collect and all that fun stuff. So I think that this is a pretty solid fit. So naturally, right off the bat, our friend is going to suffer some penalties once he spends the day with this club and begins to understand what's going on with it. So naturally, his intelligence goes from a 9 to a 7, which RIP. Our strength becomes a 14, which is nice because now we get those sweet, sweet bonuses there. Wisdom, holy moly, his wisdom. So wisdom becomes a 3, which I'm sure that won't come to bite us in the butt at any point. Don't worry about that. I'm actually going to look up that bonus real quick. So luckily that 14 in strength does give us a +1. So opening stuck doors with a 14, it does boost us up quite a bit. Our opening doors now becomes a whopping 3 in 6, which I know everybody was really holding out for that, really wondering like, oh my gosh, Dan, does he open doors easier? And listen, ladies and gentlemen, he does. But now he gets also a +1 strength modifier to his attacks and his damage, which is sweet. And I'll go ahead and put that in real quick. All right, now that I've edited this, our saves against magic with that sweet wisdom of 3 become a -3, which is the lowest on the table, which really sucks. But then again, whatever. We'll see what happens, I guess. Okay, cool. So now that we've got that nailed down and we know that our party are just about ready to head back out there, we should take the time to purchase some food for ourselves. Now, because Todrick is in fact a glutton at this point, I'm gonna suggest that we're gonna have to use, well, Sugar Daddy's money. Sorry, I said in the last episode I wasn't gonna call him that, but Idalar, our illusionist, is gonna have to fork it over. So first and foremost, it's gonna be 15 gold out of the 53 that the party have. We're really getting kind of low on our total treasure. So 15 will give at least the party members that we have that are eating normal rations a stockpile. So everybody's going to get 7 right off the bat. Because right now the party don't have that many stored up, which, that is what it is. As far as everybody else goes, that should be all set for them. Now, the difference is that because our buddy Todrick is certainly going to be a gluttonous man, he's going to be getting his iron rations. Now, the problem with the iron rations is that they will cost a bit more, and by that I mean 3 times as much. And I'm going to give him also a nice thing of whiskey, because I figure if he's going to have his booze and his, he needs his booze. So I'm going to go ahead and put on there that he's got a nice stash of whiskey. Now, I don't imagine whiskey's going to be too expensive out here in the Borderlands, so I'm just going to round it out and say that it costs 3 gold for him to get a stash enough for a week's time, and 15 on top of that puts him at 18 total, so the party's wealth is down to 20 gold. We are really hitting a point now that we truly need to get some wealth going. We're going to have to start selling our stuff in order to fund the party, and that doesn't sound too fun at all. So, now that we've got some food, we've got some items in hand, and we're all suited up and ready to go, I think it's time for us to start exploring. So here's what the map looks like right now. Cool. So now, I think because we had traveled to the east, we traveled to the west, I know we did a little bit of north, but I think we should try going northwest. And as per last time, we get 48 miles of movement while we are riding on our horsies. And yeah, okay. I think we're just about good to go. So let's go ahead and get this party started. So day 1 of travel. Let's check out our weather for our weather report. It's moderate, windy, no big deal. Excellent. That is my kind of travel. So, in our first day, we're going to be able to travel 48, so we're going to be able to go the same path we did before. We're going to go into the hills, which the hills cost us 33% more movement, so that puts us at 8. Ooh, wait a minute. What am I doing? Let's get procedural. We're going to see if we even have to eat our food. Now, for the first roll that we're going to get to do with our little dice tower, I'm going to go ahead and drop it in here. On a 1 or a 2, we find food. 6. So, nope, no food. I really hope that's not too loud. If it is, my apologies, everybody. Next, let's roll for random encounters as we're going to be heading into the hills. In the hills, I believe it is a 1 or a 2. Good, a 4. So, let's see, was I even right about that? Random encounters in the hills, it is a 2 and 6. Cool. So I was right, and we didn't get one. Excellent. So, let's get this party started. So our party are going to travel. It's going to cost us 8 because it's 30% more to move into hills. Moving into the forest, same deal, so that brings us to 16. And now we're going to move technically into a tile that has a layer, and it's going to cost us twice as much because it's mountains. So here's my thinking. The chances of us stumbling upon the layer that's currently right here in the mountains, we have a chance of running into this place, and I'm trying to think about what would be a reasonable number to get. I know it has to be a 1 on a d8 to create it, and I think it might be fair to say, let's see if it's on a 1 on a d8 we find it. So let's try. 6. So no, we don't stumble upon there, and that's good for that. Now, another thing that I was kind of curious about, and I was thinking about doing this, in the last episode we talked about this with mountains, and I'm thinking that I might employ this rule now. Whenever we reach a mountain, it costs us a lot of movement, but I think what would be fun is if every time we hit a mountain, we can find out what each tile is around us. Now, where this gets tricky is because I don't know that would mean that the party would be able to see what it is in the tile, because, you know, if it's something like a ruin or something, then it's like, you know, we don't really see it per se. So it gets kind of tricky for us. So yeah, let's see what's in the adjoining tiles. So let's check right here. I'm gonna roll again a d20 for the only one tile we haven't currently seen in this. So we got a 7. Sorry, that's kind of hard to read. But the 7 means that it is still mountain. And on a 1 on a d8, ooh, holy cow, that shot out of there. Of course, the dice terror launches them at me. So there's nothing fancy and it's mountain. Okay, and since we're moving into this one, it's gonna cost us another 16, which brings us up to a full 48. And that would be the end of our travel for the day as we go up into the mountains. So, unless, am I being stupid? Hold on, I could be being stupid. You know, I am being stupid. We move 50% slower, not double. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I really wish sometimes that I had a brain. No, I'm just kidding. So that would be 9 for each of these. So the first 9 would bring us to 25, and the second 9 would bring us to 34. Okay, cool. So we still have a bit of speed left to us now. Now, again, like I said before, because we're on the mountaintop, I think it's safe to say that we can at least see what the general area looks like around us, okay? And directly north, it is more mountains. I don't like that the d20s keep flying out of there. And next to it is more mountains. Okay, so we are getting mountainous. Now that we've got these spaces and we haven't figured out if there's anything in it yet, I'm gonna roll real quick just to see if there's anything fancy. So directly north, 7, so nothing, and beside it, 6, so nothing. Okay, so now that we're up top, we at least have a pretty good idea of where we are, and we have an idea of what's in the near vicinity. So I think the party are just gonna, again, trudge a little bit further into the mountains, bring us to 43, and we'll end in the the westernmost of the mountains that we can see. And we're gonna again roll to see what we can see over the mountainside, since we'll be clearing up those 2 other spaces. So, our d20, I got an 8, sorry if that's hard to read, which is more mountains, and a 15, so hills. Interesting. So let's roll to see if there's anything fancy. Nothing on the mountains, and on the hills, nothing fancy. Okay. So now that we've seen what we can see, I think our party are free to take a little rest here and call it a day up here at this mountainous view. Okay, so now that that day is over, I think the party are gonna notice that our buddy Todrick is a very hungry man, and he is absolutely crushing his food. Naturally, everybody's gonna use a food ration, so that'll be that. Okay, so now for the next day, let's roll to see if we are able to gather food. 2, so 5, nothing. Now we'll see for a random encounter. This is 3 and 6. Oops, 5. Do I care if it lands inside? Because I feel like the amount that this thing comes flying out. I feel like such an old man right now, just complaining about like, the dice are rolling out of my dice tower. Okay, so at least we know no encounters, no rations. Great, good stuff. Now let's check the weather. Now, weather in our area. We have windy, moderate weather. Perfect, so nothing terrible to slow us down. Okay, so now that we're at this point, let's go ahead and get moving. I think it's fair that we move into the hills, because I think the hills will be at least a little bit easier on our horsies. So we're gonna start off by going 33%. Oops. I know I gotta keep remembering what I do for my little system of writing right here. So we'll start off by 8 miles. Okay, so we've moved into the hills, and now we lose that element of being able to see the horizon, as it were. So I think now that we're over here, we're not gonna be able to get a boat ride back. So I think it makes sense that maybe we fill in a bit more of the forested area, that we hadn't seen before, since we're not going to be able to loop it back around and get to the boat with Ferd. So let's keep moving. I think it makes sense if we just go northwest. Okay, so 3 means it's more hills, so, and let's see if there's anything fancy in them, our hills. 8, so no, nothing yet. Cool, okay. So that means we use another 8, move up to 16 miles, okie dokie. Now that we have our hills, I don't know, I don't want to go too far out, but then again, yeah, let's go one more northwest. Let's see if we screw ourselves over. 18, all right. I don't know that one off the top of my head. So let's see, hills and an 18 become water. Huh, interesting. Okay, so we'll put that in right there. Now, do we have anything weird for water is a good question. 8. No. How? You know, this is the most boring little trip. Okay, so since we went to the coastline, we can at least see the water here. So I don't know that we necessarily need to count it against our travel. So now let's go to the southwest, okay? So let's roll on this one. We'll see what we get. That looks like a 6. So I'm guessing that's going to be more hills. So we'll do another 8 miles of travel. Now the question is, do we get something fancy? Man, you know, it's weird when you start craving a dungeon, you know? There was a part of me that was wondering if I needed to force a dungeon, but I don't know. I don't feel like that's all that necessary. Not necessary yet, but here's the hills. Okay, so now that the day is halfway over, I think it makes sense. Maybe we backtrack a little bit, we zigzag a little bit, and we go to the east, southeast, okay. Okay, a 2 means more hills. Okay, let's see. 4, nothing fancy, so 32. Okay. Okay, and again, continuing our little zigzag here, we're gonna go directly south. Why not, right? Okay. 3, so more hills, and I have a feeling nothing fancy. All right, we have our last stretch of walking, and I think what we'll do is maybe we'll go back northwest into the hills. All right, let's see what we got. Maybe if we roll them at the same time, we'll have some good luck. Ready? Okay, 15 and a 3. So, hills on a 15 become mountains. All right. 3 means nothing fancy though. So, that gives us, okay. So, there's our map. So at this point, we move into the last bit there, and we can call our day wrapped up. Because we didn't get any food, that brings us to 8 total rations burned. Cool. Okay. So now, I would say our party are probably exhausted having traveled through the hills, and to be honest, I mean, look at this map. That's a nice map. Honestly, the map looks really nice. The only problem I'm running into is it feels like there's nothing fancy going on with the map, you know? I haven't really found a nice dungeon. I'm really hoping our luck turns around here. I promise you, I'm trying to be as authentic as possible and really avoid the you know, forcing things to happen so that that the game is more, I want it to be authentic, I guess, for lack of a better word. So let's see what happens on our 3rd day, you know? Also, surprise dice. Okay, so 3rd day, let's go ahead and roll for random encounters. Oy, 1, so we have an encounter. 4, we have no food. Okay, let's see what the weather looks like. All together now. Here's the weather in your area. It's clear and moderate. Ooh, who doesn't love moderate? Let's see what our random encounter is. We'll do a 20 and an 8. Okay, a 16 and an 8 for the mountains. Let's see. So, mountains. Okay, and we got an 8, so it's unusual. Okay, and that's table 2 unusual. So unusual, table 2, and 16 is another OSE. Interesting. We ran into one of those before. I'm hoping that this is a good sign, that our party would be well aware of the spooky Otyug, and we will have good luck and not die. So out in the wild, we're gonna go ahead and roll to see what we have for our random encounter amount. It's a 1d2, so there will be 2. Okay. They have light sensitivity, which makes me feel like they wouldn't be coming out in daylight, so I'm thinking that if we do run into them, they probably have the penalty. They're probably hungry and looking for fresh meat, but they're gonna struggle a bit. So they'll try to go after the party, but I'm sure their morale will break if things go bad pretty quickly. So let's go ahead and see if our party catch them or if they catch us. So we're only surprised on 1. Okay, I'd be pretty spiteful if we got our 1 for our random things there. And then they're surprised on a 3 because we're in the wild with our fancy little Ranger 3, so they're surprised. Okay. Now again, because Otyug are actually really tough, I'm thinking what'll happen is as soon as the party see those things crawling around and munching and grunching at the ground, I'm thinking Tamond will probably notice them right off the bat, and he'll just say to the party, we're not dealing with this, you know. Again, I don't want to lose any more party members than we already have, so we'll keep bouncing. So, bounce we do. We're in the mountains. I think it's safe that we go, you know what, let's go northwest one more time, and let's see if that gives us any luck. Again, we're in mountains, but now the mountains become hills with a 12, so that's kind of fun. Seems like we've reached something of like a peak up here. So let's go ahead. That's going to be 50% extra movement, so that's 9 miles right there. Okay. Yeah, let's, you know what? Well, maybe we should push 1 more to the west and see what we got. Yeah, let's do 1 more northwest. I'm feeling risky. Okay, so more hills, nothing fancy. Jeez, at the very least, this is at least like a fast process. Okay, so now as we travel back down, it becomes mountains. I had to catch up with the math there for the miles of traveling all around the Bangarang there. I think it's safe to say that we should probably go south now. So we're in the mountains. And going south, ooh, a 19. Again, the high numbers on the D20 roll when we're rolling for our terrain give us more variety, I guess is a good way to put it. Sort of changes things up. So with mountains on a 19, that becomes forest. Okay, I can live with that. Forest is fun. Traveling into the forest is going to be 33% slower. So we go to 42, and that just about wraps us up for the day. Okay, so now we'll be moving into day number 4, and I think it's safe to say that we should start planning our way back, because things are going to start to get rough if we start running out of food, because it seems we haven't been very good at actually getting food out here. So as far as the weather goes, it's cloudy, which, you know, again, we can live with that. And now we're in the forest. So let's see. Do we find food? 1 and 2? No. Do we find a random encounter? 1 and 2? Of course we do. But you know what? This could be good. This could be something fun. All right, D20 and an 8. 14 and a 3. All right, let's see what we got. Again, good luck. Let's see what we got. So a 3 is a flyer, and a 14 flyer on table 1 gives us a pseudo dragon. Huh. Interesting. Now, I remember when I was playing this game as a kid, we had somebody in the party who had caught a pseudo dragon and gave it so many little gifts that, you know, they're a fun little critter. So the text says, intelligent, miniature, 1 to 2 feet long winged dragons with a sting-tipped tail and rusty red scales, dwell in small caves or hollowed out trees. All right, so a surprise on 1 to 4. Ooh, okay, and then they have, induces a comatose near-death-like state for 1d6 days. Whew, okay. Magic resistance, telepathy, and companion animal, or companion. Sometimes become a companion for a lawful adventurer, able to telepathically transmit senses to the companion up to 240 feet. Wow. Okay. So, you know what? Tammond might be able to find a friend out here, which, you know, between Tammond and Zion, I think that that could be fun. The way I've always known them is that they're definitely big on loot and they love to be spoiled. They just love chewing on coins and all that stuff. So let's first roll to see if we even notice each other. So first and foremost, the party are only surprised on a 1. Okay, so they're not surprised. But then again, do they spot it? So it's only caught on a 5 or a 6. They can see it. Okay. Wow. Okay, so a 6. So we do see it, and we're not surprised. So the party probably hear it, you know, making all these kinds of noises inside of a tree, a hollowed out tree. And I imagine Tammond can see it, and he's very curious by what the thing is. So as he approaches, just to try to see if maybe it's game that he can hunt and get for the party, he sees a little draconic head peek out of the tree and just kind of look back at him real quick and gasp a little bit. Let's roll a reaction to see if the dragon is willing to befriend the party. We'll use Tammond's score because I think that's fair. I don't think we can really take advantage of Zion in this point, having a good charisma. We have a 9, so there's no penalty, no bonus. 5 means it's sort of hostile, doesn't want to deal with us. What a bummer. Okay, so the pseudo dragon sniffs at the party and gives them a dirty look. I imagine that seeing that this is a dragon, I don't want to go above and beyond here. I'm gonna, you know what, let's roll for intelligence for our ranger to see if he would know to do to like offer it gold or whatever. We have an 11 for intelligence. If we score below it, then we're good. 16. So no, Tammond has no idea. He doesn't know what the dragon would want. Probably gets out some food and offers it. I imagine the pseudo dragon sniffs at this and flies out of the hollow of the tree. At this point, I imagine that Todrick probably gets angry, grabs the food from Tammond, and starts eating it aggressively at him. To which the party sort of just shrug and move on grumpily back into the forest on this rather cloudy and dreary day. Okay, so now that we know we've got no food for the day, we're gonna go ahead and put that in there, 16. Okay, and we're in the forest, so let's, I'm thinking. Maybe we can cut back northeast. Okay, let's see. Rolling from the forest, so the forest actually becomes plains on a 12. Interesting. Okay. And now because it's plains, traveling into the plains costs us no extra movement. Okay. Moving through the plains, we have a 7 and a 7, so the plains remains. All right, I think we're gonna continue one more to the southeast, connecting it over to the forest. We got a 4 and a 20, so the plains and a 20, I think might give us water, but let's find out. So plains, yep, water it is. Cool. Okay, so we just have a random lake out here. Unfortunately, there's nothing fancy going on in it, but the lake might actually extend. And by extend, I mean that we might see more lake, and this actually might become a larger body of water. So since we traveled through the plains again, and now we walk on the water's edge. Okay, now, okay. So water with a 15, I believe, becomes marsh. I feel like that it's interesting that there's kind of like a flow to things. Yeah, water becomes marsh on a 15. Okay. Where it makes sense, it's almost like a flow chart of sorts, where it's like, you know, like water becomes marsh, plains become forest, mountains become hills, etc. So, okay. So now that that's over, the marsh, I actually think is going to cost us quite a bit of extra movement. So let's double check that before we go any further. So yeah, swamps, we move 50% slower. So because it's 6 miles, it's gonna take us 9 instead. So that'll boost us to 27. Cool. Okay, and now walking along the marsh, more marsh. That's what the kids crave, more marsh. Nothing fancy, but we're getting marshy. Okay, now we're gonna go back northeast again. We're gonna see what we get now that we're moving into, ooh, okay, more marsh. Interesting. Again, the marsh costs us 50% more movement. So unfortunately, that seems like that's it for us for today. Yeah, okay, 45 on the dot. Cool. So the party are going to take a yucky slumber in the marsh, bringing us to day number 5. We really should start making our way back home to Valley Dar at this point. Cool, so that's going to be an interesting thing for us to plot out, and I really hope we don't run into anything awful. Now, plotting our course back, it looks like our overall trek back, if we take the quickest possible route, which might involve us going through the swamp again, that would be 9, 18, and then another group of 33%. Okay, so it doesn't seem like it'll be too far for us. It seems like really moving through the mountains is the hardest bit of movement. So I think it might make sense for us to, I don't want to say, take the long way back, but maybe we could do one more swipe around the bottom so that we could possibly find something else exciting on the way. So I think we're gonna go southwest, then loop it back. All right, so let's roll for it. Wait a minute. I'm getting way too ahead of myself here. First of all, food? No food. Random encounter? No random encounter. All right, now let's see. Okay, more marsh. So fun. Also, don't tell anybody how ahead of myself I'm getting because I also skipped the weather, which is clear, by the way. So don't worry about that. Okay. Very good. So now our party are gonna move again southeast. Come on. Oh! We got something special. It took us 5 days, one whole business week, but we found it in a marsh. Now, I'm praying to the dice gods above that we don't just get ruins or something like that, and we get something substantive that we can actually sink our freaking teeth into. Let's see. Okay, so now that we're rolling for what we found, we're gonna have to roll a d12. If I get a 1 or a 2, I may have to call the Dungeons and Dragons police and then first explain to them that I'm actually playing Old School Essentials. They'll say, what's the difference? It's really more of a, a catch-all term, and then we'll all have a laugh in Gygaxian fashion. But before we get to that, let's roll a d12. I'm really hoping that on this little table, I know you guys can't see it, I'm really sorry about that. 1 to 2 is ruins and relics, 3 and 4 is lured layers, 5 and 6 is rivers, roads, and islands, 7 or 8 is castles or citadels, 9 to 10 is temples and shrines, and 11 to 12 is villages and towns. I really hope we don't get a 1 or a 2 because I'm kind of really tired of ruins, but here we go. 3, okay. They said, we won't hit you with that 1 or 2, but how about a 3? You know what? I can live with a 3. So, for lured layers, let's get rocking on that. So, as far as lured layers go, I'm gonna actually move this down here so you guys can see what I'm looking at, because I feel like that's only fair. Okay, so first and foremost, a layer type. We're gonna need to roll a d8 to see what kind of layer type we got. All right, so on our 8, we got a 4, so we're dealing with a camp. Ooh, swamp camp. Okay, so here's what we know. It's a camp. A camp of what? What could it be? All right, now let's see, layer occupation status. Right, occupation status. Let's see if the dungeon denizens are unemployed. I'm sorry, I'm kidding. All right, 6. It's fully occupied. I think that's kind of what I deserve. Full occupy. Maybe if I just keep making jokes, it'll pay off in some way. It probably won't. So caves, nope. Camp. All right, camps are very scary. Usually they're civilized critters though. It says camps are temporary dwellings and may be at this location for a day, a season, or years, depending on the goals and situation of the occupants. Cool, so let's roll a d20 and see what we got. It's funny, I saw ogres on there as the 20 option. I swear, if I get ogres, I'm gonna slap somebody. Okay, you know, it got dangerously close to what I thought was 20, but it's not. 17. Ooh! Orcs. I've never been more excited to see orcs. How many orcs, you say? I'm so glad you asked. We have 3d10 times 10 orcs. Okay, 14. Whoop. 14, 24, 240 orcs. And they're all at the camp. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Okay. Okay. So let's see the fighting force of the camp. So how many of the orcs in the camp are built for fighting? On a 6, we got a 3, which is 60% warriors. Which, you know what? Okay, that's not terrible. Again, it's a smidge over half, so that's let's see, 10% would be 24 for each, should be 120, so 144 fighting orcs. Of course. Okay. Cool. So their leader, ooh, D6. Their leader is an elder. Okay. So let's see what their leader is all about. Okay, and their leader is an elder. Let's give them a quick name. The elder's name will be Grobasha. Ooh, Grobasha, that's fine. Okay, and the current status of the camp. 5 regular patrols. Ooh. I'll call it camp defense. Reg patrols. Okay, and the current defenses. 3. An abandoned citadel. Ooh. Again, I'm saying ooh because we finally have some excitement. I'm gonna regret this. And you know, that's the funniest part of all this is I'm like, yay, we have something to do. And the party's just gonna get absolutely decimated. I'm laughing because it hurts. Okay, so now that we have seen this camp, does the camp see us? Now, whoa, I'm actually colorblind, or at least a little bit. I've got red-green weakness, and I did not know that this was actually two-tone. Interesting. So the party, let's roll to see if we get caught. So they only see us on a 1. Nice. Okay, now let's see if we see them. We got a 1 through 3. Cool. Excellent. So now our party are aware of an orc camp. We see it in the distance. Now I also think that this little roll I did right there would be for an orcish patrol since they're regularly patrolling. Now how many orcs would be in a patrol? That's an interesting question. I would say that there'd probably be like 2d6 of them, right? Oops. Jeez. What? All right, 7 total orcs. You know, maybe this is me being silly. Maybe this is me being an idiot. But I think the party might actually just charge the orcs and rout them because I think that, I don't know. Screw it, they're evil. Let's kick their butts. Can you tell it's been a minute since we've had a crazy little bit of combat? So, let's begin by rolling to see our encounter stuffs. Now, because they're not surprising us, we're surprising them. It's going to be 1d4 times 10 yards, since we have surprise. So, we've got 4. So that gives us 4 times 10 yards, which is 120 feet away. Not bad, especially because our horsies travel so much faster than that. We get 80 in a round. Yep, 80 per encounter, so we're gonna be able to really move in on that one. Okay, so of the 7 orcs that we've got, and we've got 7 orcs. And I imagine these orcs are all just walking around. I don't think there's any sense that they're going to be riding on horses or anything. Let's roll for reaction. I'm imagining orcs are usually going to give us a -1, so we'll roll natural. Oh yeah, no, that's a combat. That is 100% a combat. Okay, so I think that as soon as we have the opportunity to get the jump on these guys, I think what we might do is we're gonna shoot first, get their attention, and once the orcs start noticing that, you know, we're here, I think they're gonna start charging for us because they're stupid, and then we're gonna just rout in and crush them. So we're gonna have some reserve for right now before we go absolutely trouncing in and kicking their butts. So we're gonna start the round with Zion shooting her short bow. She's gonna take a -1 because it's beyond her first range increment. And I believe she's the only one who's gonna be shooting right now. As far as spells go, I know Idalar could probably use his orb, but I think he's gonna wait for now. I think it's really just gonna be our friend Zion launching an arrow in. So let's go ahead and do that. She has a +1 on the shot, but she takes a -1 because of the range. So let's see what we get on that. An 8, that is a miss, clearly. I don't even know what the orc's armor class is, and I know that that's a miss. So they fire an arrow, there's a shout of alarm, the orcs hoot, holler, and screech. It seems we have a fight on our hands. So now the orcs, at this point, and orcs of course, they are going to, well, it's cloudy, so that makes sense why they don't have a -1 for having that problem with daylight. Cool, okay, so let's go ahead and see if we win the initiative or not. Again, because the orcs are gonna be moving in on us, we're gonna charge them once we get the opportunity. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna just relinquish the initiative, let them charge at us, and then we're gonna just absolutely decimate. So their movement, right off the bat, it says that they move 40, we move 80, so we're gonna clear that 120 gap, no problemo. Okay, so they charge 40, hooting and hollering, all 7 of them, and then we're gonna charge in on horseback with Tamond and with our buddy Todrick. So let's go ahead, we'll meet their charge and absolutely crush. At least I like to think that, but you know how it goes. So first and foremost, Todrick will roll, has a +3 on the attack. 12, that becomes a 15. The orcs have an AC of 6, so we hit with that. It's a D6 +3. So that's 4 points of damage, but they have 4 HP, so one of the orcs is immediately knocked out of the combat. Okay, and excellent. Now we'll see if Tamond is able to hit. A 12. As long as he has a +1, that's a hit. Now, does he have a +1 is really the question. And the answer is yes, he has a +1. Excellent. Incredible, actually. And we have a +1, and he uses a D8 for damage because he's swinging a longsword. Nice, 9 points of damage. That right there is an Aragorn chop of the head. Like that is, you know, in the movie. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So now we're down to 2 orcs dead, 5 of them left. Now we're gonna go ahead and roll for morale because these orcs are stupid. I'm thinking that their morale of a 6 would probably mean that they would break and run back to their camp. So let's see if we get above a 6. No. So the orcs, even though we've killed 2 of them, probably think they still outnumber us, and for that reason, they're just gonna double down right now. I think that Tamond and Todrick ran up. I think that both Idalar and Zion are gonna stay back and continue to support in the way that they were before. So, shoot. I didn't even think about that. Speaking of shooting, I think Idalar and Zion are gonna stay 30 feet back, and they're gonna fire in. So Zion misses, so I guess that's good. And Idalar is probably gonna use that orb, all things considered. So spell save from the orc is a 10. They save on a 16+, so no save on that. So let's see what we get. Our first level of chromatic orb gives us a light effect, and we automatically deal damage. So if we get a 4, it's an automatic kill. 4, nice. All right, so that does get another kill. So that gives us 4 left before we go into initiative on the next round. and that light effect goes off. A bright burst of light probably scares the bejeebies out of the orcs, but not enough to break their will. So now let's roll for initiative. I'm gonna have the party be, you know what, I'm gonna have them be this one, and the orcs will be this one. Cool, so the party win initiative, and we're gonna just go ahead and continue lopping some heads. So as far as order goes, Idalar is not gonna do anything because he's all spent. Zion's gonna fire in. 19, excellent shot. Because she's using our bow, we got a 6. Ooh, 5, well, I'll roll it in the thingy. 4, that's still a kill. Clean in house, guys. We have 3 orcs left. Now we're gonna have our 2 melee characters swinging in. We got Todrick with a +3, 20 even. Woohoo! And that's a d6 +3. Dang, 8. Wow, there are 2 orcs left. And now Tammin with a +1. Ooh, Tammin with a +1. 15, that's good. So he hits with a d8 +1. 2 points of damage, so one of them is wounded. I'm gonna go ahead and give like a little half of a nugget. Okay, and now the orcs that are left are gonna keep swinging in on the party members that they can reach. So you get the 2 of them that are left. They're gonna go ahead and swing on, one on Tammin and one on Todrick. You know, they probably would both go for Todrick, to be honest. Okay, so we got an 8 and a 15. Todrick's armor class is not that good. So I have a feeling we might be taking some hits right now. Yeah, armor class of a 7. Woo-wee. That is not very good. Their Thaco is a 19. So the 8 misses, but the 15 hits. Now I'm gonna say they attack with a d6 of damage. 6 points. Whew. Okay, yeah, we're getting dangerously close here. Okay, so I read that too quickly. I thought that he had 6 health. Okay, so because he had 8 total health, he's down to 2 points. Okay, and cool. Not so cool, to be honest. Okay, so now let's roll for morale for the orcs. I really don't think that they're gonna stick around here. I'm gonna give them a -1 on this. So if they get above a 5, which they do, they're gonna flee. Now, honestly, I have this bad habit as a DM. I know a lot of people are gonna hate me for this, but I think sometimes in overwhelming odds, like when the party are so much faster, when they start fleeing, I kind of just give them the victory. I just say that like if the orcs are gonna flee on their turn in initiative, they just rout them. You know what I mean? There's an edition of Warhammer Fantasy where that's kind of how it works, is if an army breaks and they start to flee, the other side can choose to chase them and rout them, and I've always liked that for these larger scale things. So I'm gonna say because there's 1 wounded and 1 left, the party just straight up chase them and rout them out, right? So the 7 orcs are dead. Now, holy moly, we might actually be able to get some loot off these guys. Oh my god. You know, it's sad that we have to resort to orcs for loot, but that is how it is, I guess. So let's see what we got for treasure type D. So treasure type D does not give us much loot. I'm gonna go ahead and roll that real quick. Oh, well, that's D for the entire encampment. So looks like they don't have any treasure of their own here. It's just some weapons and whatnot. Okay, so I'm thinking that the party are probably going to realize that the weapons the orcs have is diddly poop and not worth much of anything to anybody. I'm going to go ahead and erase from the total group of fighters here, and I'm going to say that there's now only 137. You know, death by 1,000 cuts, right? So now that we've killed off a troop of orcs, I think our party are aware that this camp is a group of fighting orcs, right? And this is not the kind of thing that they want to just deal with on their own. So the party probably think better of their choice to take on an entire camp and decide they're going to come back at a later time. All right, so now that that's over with, my goodness, the party are going to go ahead and keep on moving. So now that we're at a point where we're going to keep moving, we just moved into that swampy swamp. So that brought us to that 18. And now we're going to be moving southeast again. Got 11, so it's going to remain swamp, I believe. No, actually, it might become water. Okay, well it was the 11, so I'm not gonna go back on that. Okay, yeah, so unfortunately I was right, so the marsh does become water. Cool. Okay, so let's add that in. Okay, so now that we did that, the party are going to continue on their merry way. We already said before that that'd be worth 6. Okay, so now the party are gonna move into another thing of swamp, which we've already traveled through before. I'm gonna keep the map up so you guys can see the trail we're gonna take getting back. So moving through that bit of swamp is gonna give us another 9, so that brings us to 33. Continuing, ooh, the party are probably gonna wander a good distance around the abandoned village where we lost a few homies. So I'm gonna go ahead and move through the forest. Forest is gonna give us 8 for every square, so if we do the next one, it'll bring us to 39, and then 45 will leave us at the watery spring, which is kind of nice, right? You know, who doesn't love a good spring? I think the next day, or that evening, the party are going to recount their battle with the orcs, and they're all going to agree that having the orcish encampment so close to Valley Dar, really only 2 days' ride on horses, that this might be the kind of thing that they can scout out and start to deal with over time. But then again, that's a lot of orcs, and I don't think that they really want to be tied up too much in an orc, infestation. So, do with that what you will. I'm sure Todrick will recount how much he enjoyed the violence of it all. Okay, so I'm gonna roll it now on the next day. We're gonna see what we got for weather. We're gonna really hope that we don't get weather that's too bad for us to travel. Okay, I got moderately warm weather and clear skies. Oops. So now, are we gonna find food? 1 or 2? 6, nothing. Random encounter in the forest. In the forest. Ooh. Cool, so no random encounters, none of that. Not that I'm not looking forward to that, but you know how it goes. So we'll keep the map up right here. So first and foremost, traveling through forest 2 more times will give us another 16 miles of travel, and then we'll move through the mountains. That one that we passed through before, which again, I'm gonna roll a D8. If we get a 1, we'll find that cave. No, we did not find the cave. Okay, but the mountain does cost us double, so that brings us to 25 miles from the day. Then we get to another bit of forest, as you can see, and that brings us to 33. The hills bring us, again, 50% more. 33% more. So another 8 brings us to 41. And then we get back to Valley Dar, and that brings us full circle. So 24 rations later, my goodness. All right, so now that we've made it back to town, we can dole out some of this sweet, sweet XP from having killed those orcs. I'm also gonna say that we probably took what we could salvage from the orcs that was worth selling and grab ourselves at least like 5 gold pieces from the armor and the gear that we were able to sell in town. I think that that's fair. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As far as XP goes, that brings us to about 18 total XP amongst all of the orcs that we killed, which really is not that much. And I don't think that that's in any way going to break anything for us to have gotten that extra bit of gold. And I think that a frontier town like this probably would benefit from having that extra little bit of income coming in for them, But yeah. I know, again, I look at somebody like Idalar who only has 19 XP total, and I'm like, does he really, are we really bending the rules that bad by doing that? I think not. Okay. So let's see, now, as far as things go, I'm gonna finish up some bookkeeping and then we can talk. Okay, so, that was a lot. We did a lot of traveling, and again, I'll pop you the map right here, again, so you guys can see how beautiful the map looks. And honestly, I know I say that, but it really does have a certain look to it that, I know it's procedurally generated, and when you think about how small the area we started with is, this is kind of a cool looking map, and it makes you wonder if the orcs that we're dealing with here are from a much larger area. I also am curious about, you know, what we had talked about before about those ogres, and wondering if, you know, do they come from somewhere farther away too, or is this sort of just a fruitful area that everybody kind of has their hands on and their eyes on, looking for resources to be gathered out here in the frontier. But either way, the party are back in Valley Dar, and we have a total of 25 gold for the entire party. Now, because of the current needs that Todrick has for food, it seems like our party are going to be kind of really barely getting by with the food that they've got. So we have sort of a difficult sort of dilemma on our hands, where we really need to get some cash flowing in for the party, or we're going to be in some tight times, you know? So it makes me wonder if maybe we should force something of a quest, or if we should start considering something like finding a location or making a location or something. I think that that would be kind of contrived and against the project of what we're doing. Again, it's not lost on me that this episode was pretty much traveling simulator, you know what I mean? Where like we just did a nice little bangarang. I mean, we filled out the map really nicely, but we didn't get to do much, right? We fought the orcs, right? We found an orcish camp, and that's great. But I think that maybe for the next episode, what we can do is we can travel farther to the east. There's a large forest. Again, I'll show the picture right here, and then you can see that to the east there's a bit of forest that we haven't really gone fully through. And it would be really awesome if we took advantage of the fact that it's easier to travel through forest than it is through mountains. Which I know sounds silly, but when we're starting to really get down to budgeting our time and budgeting our money, it's important to think about, you know, what the quickest way to get back would be. Now again, I don't know what kind of bad luck we've had with all these D8 rolls and not getting ones, but I think that if we go to the east and we're able to find something to do for like a dungeon, our party seem like they're at a point where they can, you know, they can fend for themselves. You know, like we can fight, we can take on these issues, and especially now that Todrick has that fancy Kraken Wrath of Carrick, I think that the party can handle some decent threats. But will we find it? So, you know, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Again, as I've showed you in the beginning of this video, I read everything. I love to see everything that you guys send my way. And I'm going to keep putting feelers out into the communities. Again, the OSR Facebook page, the Old School Essentials Facebook page, and in my comments. I love to interact with you guys and help me come up with ideas. So listen, if any of you guys have an idea for a get-rich-quick scheme for these guys, just say the word. And I'm sure we can find something out. But until next time, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.